Hello and welcome to episode 3 of In the Loop. This episode, IA publisher and co-owner Gary Robinson meets International Managing Director of Titan Wealth, William Burrows.
First time I've been in your offices, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
Fantastic.
Our pleasure.
So you were here as HR and...
We were, yeah. So
How many years have you been in this office?
Since June, I'm going to say the 3rd, 2020. So we merged Harrison Row and Arlo in June the 3rd, 2020. And during that merge process, this location also came up and became available. So it made sense, especially from a cultural perspective, bringing two businesses together and getting people on board with a rebrand and a collective mission. Having a new office, a new location, especially when that's better than the one you're in, is always going to make it a lot easier. However, we have outgrown it, so we've just taken on the office next door, which I showed you earlier.
Yeah.
Boarded up section of the kitchen, but we've taken another 4,000 square feet next door to expand into, so we were very lucky that came up because it's very rare you're going to have another unit that's attached to one of them come up and become available. So landlord probably had us a little bit to his advantage, I think, on that one.
I think the fact that you were able to get it is gilt-edged opportunity. So 6 months in, I believe, roughly, for the Titan Wealth International, the Titan...
That's right, Titan Wealth International, yeah.
Was it an acquisition? It
was complete acquisition of Titan Wealth, acquiring AHR, and then AHR becoming Titan Wealth International. So 6 months in.
How's that going?
Brilliantly. It's going very, very well. I was off for 2.5 months of that on paternity leave, but was kind of keeping in check with what was going on. But it's been phenomenal. I think everybody across the board has been impressed with everything that Titan have had to offer, all the support. Various members of their investment team, their senior management leadership have been flying over to Dubai to meet and greet, help support, provide assistance where needed. It's also opened up a lot more opportunity for the advisors in terms of client proposition, a lot more expertise to lean on within the London office, within the Yorkshire office, and other locations such as South Africa that Titan have got in different areas of our business to help expand and develop what we're working on. So it's been really good.
I think when these kind of things happen, it's very much business, it has to be business as usual as the reason they acquired you. But having that additional support, having that kind of being part of something bigger, must be quite nice.
It is really nice. I think really nice on the back of having 18 months where a lot of the focus from within the business, from the senior leadership, management teams, was on the transaction.
Yeah.
And so really your eyes off the ball in terms of business growth during that period. So the moment we exchanged and then completed, we were all really pleased and quite motivated in rebranding quickly.
Yeah.
So that we kind of moved into that new era of we are Titan Wealth International. That's what we're going to become long term. So let's make that decision earlier rather than later, and align everybody like we did when we merged Harrison Row and Arlo. We rebranded and moved everybody and changed everything immediately, so that there's nothing pending moving forward. So objectively, we tried to integrate as much as humanly possible so far. There's still a few more bits to do, more so on the IT technology side. With group, but it's been phenomenal.
How's things going business-wise? We've had Q1, we're into Q2 now, and what's it looking like for 2025 for Titan Wealth International? And what's the assets under management like at Titan Wealth?
So the assets under management for Titan Wealth are $48 billion. So that's growing substantially. They only started in 2020. So with the right backers and the right support, they've obviously grown the business relatively quickly to a significant size. Business-wise, in terms of Q1 or since the transaction, business has been phenomenal. We've onboarded another 8 to 9 advisors already.
This year?
This year, hence the reason for needing to expand into next door. In fact, I found some people yesterday on various different seats in the office because I hadn't realised they'd given their seats up so that the new starters could come in. But generally, from an onboarding of advisors, things are going very, very well. We're about to hire a new head of recruitment, which is going to further help build that out moving forward. I think from a if we look back down to the fundamentals of what our business is, it's advice-led, client engagement business, right? And the last 6 months have been phenomenal, because I think our job as business leaders is to build a business that instills all of the trust needed that a client needs in order to want to come on board. And then it's an advisor's job to bridge that trust with that client from an individual perspective. And so everything that maybe we didn't, the last little bit of, whether it be size of organization or global presence that we somewhat had as HR, we absolutely now have at Titan. So, we were a couple of billion, we're now 48 billion. So we're now the largest in the international space by some margin. Titan have got 1,300 staff, right? And within that, there are experts, not only from an investment perspective, but all the way down to individual asset class teams that are working on the investment portfolios, through to tax specialists, trust specialists. So our ability as an advisor firm to lean on a much wider depth and breadth of expertise across the group is enhanced. And what that's meant is that the client engagement we now have, especially from new clients, is increased in terms of the AUM per client. So, we've had inquiries over the last 6 months, and clients come on board with, 20, 30, 40 million, 50 million deposits, either from a cash management perspective or into investment portfolios, which, in all due respect, we would not have onboarded, or we didn't onboard. Maybe it would be nice to think we would have, but as AHR for that 4 years, we didn't take on clients as big as 40 or 50 million, whereas that almost seems bread and butter to some of the people within the wider group, because they've got that expertise in their teams, and that's what they've specialised on. So business has been going really, really well. There's been an uptick in AUM client numbers, and that's a byproduct of having new advisors coming in, everybody feeling very refreshed after an 18-month lull period, because the leadership is focused on the transaction and resolving everything that was going on.
It can do that to a business, especially the due diligence that goes into these kind of transactions is
extensive.
And the lawyers make the money, and they do the due diligence, and then you get to the end of the conversation, and what's changed? Oh, we've done our due diligence. That box is ticked. There's write a check for X amount. We had when we bought IA, we had a period, and it was only about sort of 3 months, 4 months, but it was so frustrating to be able to, to want to kind of announce it and get it done, and dealing with the lawyers and backwards and forwards. So on a scale that you guys were operating under, I can imagine it was incredibly tough. And then also you've got that uncertainty, haven't you? Because you're wondering if is anything going to happen at the 11th hour? And
100%. I think everybody probably went to sleep most nights for about 12 months thinking, is something going to undo this, right? This is almost too good to be true. Everything that we were perhaps missing from a proposition and a business perspective, Titan were able to provide to us, right? And the ability to now utilize their skill sets, their size, to focus on the development of initiatives that 2 years ago we would have had to have picked one of 5 initiatives to focus on. We now have the bandwidth to be able to focus on all 4 of them.
Well, it's great. It's genuinely great to see the fact 6 months in, because I remember when it happened, and I remember talking to you at the time, and through your life as well, and through your lens, wife was heavily pregnant.
Yeah.
So you're waiting for the birth of your son.
Yes. Yeah.
And so what's that like? So you've got how old now?
2 girls, 10 and 7, and then a boy who's almost 6 months. So yeah, last year was definitely probably the most hectic year of my life, and fingers crossed will remain the most hectic year of my life. Because we also decided to renovate our main home as well, at the same time as her being pregnant and doing the transaction. But you learn from these things, and stress, I think, is just an expanding ball of what you're capable of managing.
If you can manage renovating your house and dealing with the stress of that, because I've done the same thing, and the dust and the chaos, and going through a transaction of that size, and then becoming a father for the 3rd time, I think you can take on pretty much the world now.
Crossed. Yeah, fingers crossed. But
No,
I think
I'm
definitely
so pleased for you.
the transaction was, it was 12, 18 months of heavy due diligence, right? Because in reality, it was Titan's first venture into the international space. So everything they'd acquired to date, they almost had a blueprint and a framework around, what due diligence they need, how do they go through that from a UK perspective. But then to acquire a business that's regulated in, I think we had 6 or 7 international licenses, you've almost got to replicate that due diligence and that governance assessment across each of those entities, each of those jurisdictions, and then find expert consultancy partners, law firms internationally that can manage that due diligence process. So,
and then laws change and regulation changes and governments change.
100%.
And then somebody else buys something and that affects this.
Yeah. But what that does is it gives, I think, the real benefit. And sometimes you can't always join the dots looking forward, right? It's one of my favorite Steve Jobs quotes is you can only sometimes join them looking back. And I think we're now in a situation where we're 6 months in, we've become, I think everybody in senior management knows how to now read, detailed legal contracts, which perhaps only a couple of people did beforehand. And because we went through so many variations of structure, et cetera, in terms of making sure that everybody within the group was looked after, this is a acquisition to power growth moving forward and not any other type of acquisition, that we've now got a blueprint and a framework to go out across the international space. And there are a number of possible transactions currently underway.
Where are you based now then? So you've got this office here. Just tell us where you're based around the world.
We've got main headquarters is Dubai. Then we've got offices in and regulatory framework licensing in Cyprus. Titan have just acquired a business in Jersey, which is an advice business, as well as Ravenscroft in Guernsey, who also cover the Isle of Man. And they've got about 10 billion. We've got offices in South Africa, which are a technology centre, but then we're licensed in Mauritius, Lab One, and Australia is also fully authorised as well. So covering most jurisdictions. There's a couple of jurisdictions we're not directly licensed in, so we operate in the US at the moment, but then we're not currently operating directly in Switzerland or Singapore or Hong Kong. So I think in terms of the objective moving forward is to, almost a bit like a tick box exercise, is just finalise those last couple of regulatory jurisdictions so that, again, the objective for us is to build a framework in which an advisor can continue to service the relationship as a main point. Maybe not the official advice, because that needs to be given by an advisor who's registered to the license. But what's key is that as a business, we provide the facility for an advisor to continue working under the business and maintain the relationship with the client, really wherever they go.
Great to hear. Now, let me ask you a question about this industry that we're in. So I remember the first time I came to Dubai, and there was talk of the end of the gravy train. Everyone was panicking. When I say everyone was panicking, certain companies were panicking because the gravy train was going to stop because of the BOD 49 change that was out there. What a difference 9 years later. It's genuinely refreshing to see the professionalism within this industry in Dubai, because I didn't see it the first time I came over, because I was comparing it to the UK and I'm like, really? And it was very, very different. But there's still the odd bad apple that gets through. Certain unregulated companies come over, advisors get drawn into big commissions, and then it's the client that suffers at the end of the day, and it's still happening. How do you kind of counter that as an industry that we're talking in terms of Titan Wealth International? How do you sort of sit within that framework?
I couldn't agree more. I think, I came out here 11, 12 years ago, and it was a very different industry to what it is in the UK and what it is in other, or it was very different to what it was in other very highly regulated jurisdictions. In terms of gravy train and those firms or businesses charging extortionate amounts up front for taking on a client, etc., the only companies I think, or anybody in leadership that's concerned around what the future looks like when regulation changes, reducing the amount of high revenue up front you can charge a client, shouldn't really be leading or worrying or a company anyway. I mean, that shouldn't be what they're in. I think our view on our ability to grow this business and our opportunity set has always been fundamentally based on, if all we have to do is the right thing by the client, from a fee perspective, from an advice perspective, from a relationship management perspective, and a delivery of advice and service, and that is what is our USP, without needing anything else on top, and we're able to build a successful business, then we're in the right place. Because if we can then bolt on top of that a ton of different initiatives and solutions and value adds to both the advisors and all of the staff that work within the business, who are ultimately the ones who are client facing. Yeah. So if we can build a framework and a solution for them, and they feel comfortable and they're able to deliver the best of their ability to clients are going to get the best service. And I think that's really why we've grown the way we've grown. It's why the business has developed in the way it's developed. In terms of how does is the region perfect in this industry? No. But is any? Is Australia, is the US, is the UK? No. Are we behind them? Yes. And I think that, the various regulators here, from the IA, ESCA, DFSA, ADGM, are all doing a brilliant job in the further development of regulation, but more importantly, the implementation of that regulation. Because that's the bit, it's bridging that gap between what is the regulatory framework and are people abiding to and operating within that correctly. And I think if you get that bit right, which they are, then the whole sector and industry will change.
We could be, the regulators could be better connected here, to my eye. And there was talk of a single regulator or, having something like that. I think things fall between the cracks sometimes, and it's just let's find a way of stopping the scammers, can't we? Collectively as an industry, let's root these companies out in quicker and faster. So I mean, it's great that we as a publication, International Advice, have always championed best practice. It's at the heart of everything that the IA has done, and our other publication, Investment International, are exactly the same. I remember we launched, when we had our awards, we launched the best practice awards at the same time, and we were competing titles then. But on the IA side, I think those best practice awards are a real gold standard. So I go around a bunch of, I've been around pretty much all the main advisory firms in Dubai. What's the reason? What's the ethos here, and what's the reasoning behind the fact the leadership team has the worst seats in the house? They're very nice desks and the rest, but you're facing the wall, and everybody else has got this amazing view that we have.
I think it's officially the only set of 5 desks that don't have a window. We're in the official broom cupboard. We've been in there for 4 years. We're lucky enough that we don't sit in there for 14 hours a day. We do get to come and sit in the boardroom as well, right? But I think the reason why ultimately stems back to, we see an opportunity here in the industry, and we're developing and leading a business where we're asking people to come on a journey with us, where we want to change the way that we operate. We want to develop a business that provides a much better outcome for clients. And along that journey, when you're leading people, sometimes you're asking them to follow you with a bit of blind faith, because they're not privy to everything you're doing, or they don't see everything that's going on behind the scenes. And when you're leading people, you're only really going to gain their respect if, when you have the opportunity to do something when no one else is watching you do it. And we try and have tried to do that at every turn, whether it's through the development of book buyouts for advisors that want to retire, whether it's through that launching a share scheme, And I think one of the easiest ways you can do that, and you can showcase that every single day, every time someone comes in the office, is put yourself in the worst seat, because those people are the ones that are leading the business. You're there to help guide, but really the business is not led by the 5 people at the top. It's led by everybody else that's operating it. We're just trying to make sure everyone's operating it in the right direction. Everyone else is doing the work. So we can't ask them to do all that if we're going to try and take all the glory and have a big corner office. We don't need a big corner office. We don't need a big corner office. We don't need windows. Well, it'd be nice, but we don't need them. Everybody else needs a good view, and they need to be comfortable, and they're the ones that are doing all the work at the end of the day.
I like that. I like that that ethos. Well, many congratulations with the development of the business, and the impending new head of recruitment, and clearly there are going to be opportunities here at Titan Wealth International going forward. Will, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you so much for being one of our first people on our new IA podcast, In the Loop.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching this episode of In the Loop with Gary Robinson and William Burrows. Join us next time for another exclusive interview from Dubai.